easy go.
What was the Falkland Islands War? The Falkland Islands War was an undeclared war in 1982 over the Falkland Islands, also known as the Islas Malvinas in Spanish, which are internationally recognized as a territory of the United Kingdom located in the South Atlantic Ocean. They are located 300 kilometers off the coast of Argentina. In 1811, the UK either expelled the Argentinian population or the Argentinians left. This depends on who you ask. Argentina claims the islands because of their proximity to Argentina. And in 1820, Argentina claimed sovereignty over the islands despite not controlling them when they gained independence. The UK believes that the islands should be left up to self-determination, which is vastly in favor of the United Kingdom with over 99.9%. Leopoldo Galtieri invaded in 1982, who was the lieutenant general or the leader of the military junta in Argentina at the time. The junta was under fire for brutal human rights abuses. There was a desire for Argentinian patriotism or nationalism in the population between the leaders of the junta. Elite forces trained without notice into the international community. Their training was cut short, however, when Argentina raised the flag on South Georgia Island, which was also owned by the British. The invasion itself began on April 2nd, and the capital of Stanley was captured soon after. The South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands were also seized by Argentina as part of their claimed territory.
So good.
10,000 troops were stationed on the islands, which was significantly more than the 1,800 people that lived in the islands themselves. There was vastly insufficient supplies for the winter, which was soon to approach after the invasion. Nationalist sentiment in Argentina rapidly increased shortly after the beginning of the invasion, because fighting a war tends to increase patriotism among the population. The goal of the junta, therefore, is likely to increase patriotism amongst the people in order to make the junta more popular. The Argentinians were ordered not to kill any British soldiers during the initial invasion. In response to the invasion, Margaret Thatcher responded by creating a war zone around the islands. A naval task force was sent, and most of Europe supported the UK, with Latin America supporting Argentina. This is likely due to proximity and similar cultures. A notable exception of this would be Chile, which was a known rival of Argentina. Argentina thought that the United States remained neutral because both sides were allied with the U.S. during the Cold War. However, the U.S. offered full support to the UK, which showed that the UK's and the U.S.'s relationship had higher priority than other countries. The UK was allowed to use the U.S.'s missiles and fuels, which strengthened their ties additionally. The British quickly retook South Georgia Island on April 25th. Interestingly, both sides used U.S.-made equipment, especially outdated naval vessels in Argentina. An Argentine cruiser was sunk on May 2, which was the first time that a vessel had been sunk during the war. Argentina wanted to limit losses in case of an actually threatening invasion by the UK, so they kept many of the ships in port and refused to send much of its aircraft. Argentina and the UK also fought air battles with French-made aircraft. In general, the Argentine equipment was more outdated than the UK's equipment. The Falklands were on the edge of how far the Argentine aircraft could fight in, so many fighters could only get a couple hits in before having to refuel. The UK used 2 aircraft carriers because the Falklands were over 8,000 miles away, and they possibly had an overdependence on these aircraft carriers, which could be seen as a kind of Achilles heel to their war effort. The UK relied more on naval vessels to avoid the possibility of the aircraft carriers being destroyed, and avoided using their large air force because of the fact that they only had 2 aircraft carriers. Additionally, these aircraft carriers were very valuable because they costed a ton and required a large amount of time to build them. Ships that the UK used were vulnerable to air attack, however, because they had a lack of air defenses. Argentina was unable to prevent the UK from landing on its islands and beginning the reconquest of the Falklands. And this is because the UK was expected to land at the capital of Stanley. However, they decided to land on East Falkland. The majority of the Argentine forces were stationed at the capital, so it was a major shock when the UK decided to invade these Falklands. The UK decided to have an air attack on Stanley, which is likely due to the fact that they wanted to avoid the casualties of a ground invasion. The landing took place on May 21. Argentina had 5,000 defenders, and numerous British ships were sunk. The aircraft carriers, however, were left unharmed, which is a huge advantage for the UK, as Argentina had no such aircraft carriers, and the UK could send planes far more easily to the war. The UK landed at Port San Carlos and advanced southward, and there was bad weather each and every day. They captured Darwin and Goose Green, two settlements in the south of the eastern island, after several days. The British then, when approaching the capital, decided to blockade it, which caused the Argentines to surrender on June 14th, as they realized that they likely would have been starved out. The last Argentine forces were moved from the South Sandwich Islands on June 20th, and 11,400 Argentine prisoners of war were captured throughout the entire war. However, all were released. This likely wouldn't have happened under a similar government to the Argentine junta, who would have likely captured prisoners and tortured them similarly to what it was doing to its own citizens. In the end, 650 Argentines and 255 British people died, which the larger population of Argentines that died is a testament to the effort required to defend the islands from the UK's reconquest. This established the importance of air superiority in conflict, as the UK could have likely retaken the islands quicker if they had established air superiority rather than using more naval vessels. Additionally, the war led to the re-election of Margaret Thatcher and the fall of the Argentine junta.